Inner joins. Before we look at the inner joins, let's take a look at what is join. Join is a logical table that is a result of linking two or more tables or result sets together. For example, I have a customer table with customer ID, first name and last name. Then another orders table with order ID, customer ID, order date, and order amount. We can find the customer ID show up in both of those tables. Then we can use them to make the two tables together by working as the linking field. Then, what is inner join? There are a lot of different SQL joins like left joins, right joins, or fold joins. However, the inner join means we're gonna find the intersection for two or more tables and join the intersections together. Syntax of inner join. Select fields from table 1, inner join table 2 on table 1's field 1 equals to table 2's field 1. Fields are the columns you want to select out or display. Table 1 is the first table or the left table. Inner join is the keyword that introduces the additional table, or we can name it as the second table or right table. The order of left and right table doesn't matter for inner join. On is a conjunction, and here that is the linking field, which is gonna link the tables together. And let's take a look at an example. Customer table and orders table. When we really try to write a SQL, please create the database diagram to find the real relationship between the two tables. Here we can see the customer ID gonna be the linking field for those two tables. So we can start to write the SQL. Select star or any columns you want from the customers, that is the table 1, inner join, the keyword, orders, that is the second table, on customers, customer ID equals to orders, customer ID. So that is the very simple inner join SQL statement. Then we can try to create a new logical table. Firstly, it's gonna have all the columns from both of those tables. And for customer ID equals to 1, we can find the same information from order ID and put the information in one row with the same information of customer ID. For customer ID equals to 2, we can find there are 2 rows has the customer ID equals to 2 for the orders table. Then we're gonna build up 2 orders, 2 rows in the new logical tables. And we can see the customer ID 2 and first name, last name are repeated twice. Then the customer ID 3, we can find the same information over here as well. So for customer ID equals to 4, you couldn't find anything in the orders table because that is the inner join. We couldn't build up any new rows. When you try to write the SQL, again, diagrams are your best friends. Try to build up the relationships, otherwise you will end up with just like her. What is legal join? Most of the time, the join gonna be based on the primary key and the foreign key. However, you can join a character field to another character field or expression, any number field to any other number field, even integer to a floating point, or any date field to another date field. Make sure that the linking field are having the similar data type. Uses for inner joins. Usually we're gonna use it for link to tables so we can fetch fields from different tables that are related. Examples are like display buildings and or classrooms in each building. or anything that's listed in 2 tables, but you want to fetch those from those 2 or more different tables. So here's the question. Why do we need joins? Why don't we just list all the columns in a single table? Before answering that question, please note, relational database allows data to be organized in any number of tables. Those tables are related, but they are independent of each other as well. That is so-called relational database. And the relationship gonna be built up by the primary key and the foreign key. So divide the data into several different tables is what we call normalizing data. Normalizing data gonna benefit us, like minimize data redundancy, increase the data integrity, or reduces the maintenance. For example, the customer table and the orders table. Inside of a customer table, there are only information about the customer, and inside the order table, there are only information about the orders. So that is the data integrity. When we divide the information into several independent data, we can increase the data integrity. And when we try to make everything inside of one single table, we're gonna end up like what we build up when we do the inner join. And we can see that the customer ID equals to 2 and the first name, last name are repeated twice because there are 2 orders ID has the customer ID equals to 2 in the orders table. However, if there are like 100 orders ID has the customer ID equals to 2, then the customer ID 2 gonna be repeated 100 times. That is the data redundancy. When we divide the data into 2 separate tables, we can minimize the data redundancy. Similar as we try to update the information for customer ID equals to 2. If we do that, we're gonna need to update it for more than one time. Then divide them into separate different tables, gonna reduce the maintenance because the data won't be repeated inside of a single table. Sometimes we do need to join more than 2 tables when we couldn't find enough information from just the 2 tables. For example, the syntax for that is select the fields from table 1, inner join table 2, the first linking field, inner join table 3, the second linking field. So here's the example. We have student table and major table, department table. By just looking at it, major ID gonna be the linking field for the first 2 tables, and the department and department ID gonna be the second linking field for the major table and department table. However, when you really try to write the SQL, please build up the diagram to find the real relationships. And over here, we can see sometimes the linking field has different name. Linking fields have different names, like the department and the department ID. We can write the SQL like select star or whatever you want to select from student table, table 1, inner join major table, on student tables, major ID equals to major tables, major ID, the first linking field, inner join department table, that is the third table, on major tables, department equals to department tables, department ID. So when we try to do that, that is the joining more than 2 tables. However, we can see I repeatedly write the student table and major table and department table. We can use the as keyword to give it another short name. So here is as S for student table and an inner join major table, as M for major table. On S.major_id equals to M.major_id. Inner join department table as D, that is the new name for department table. On M.department equals to D.department ID. In this way, we can see we prevent the possible typo and save time and space. Sometimes we do need to use several different linking fields when we try to join maybe two tables together. So here's another example. Right now, the customer doesn't have the customer ID. However, it just has the first name and last name. Same thing for the orders table. Customer FN and customer ON means the customer first name and the customer's last name. Then we need to use those two fields to join those two tables together. So select star from the customer table as C, inner join orders table as O. We use the S to create alias for the tables. On C dot customer name, first name equals to O's customer FN and C's last name equals to O's last customer ON. The inner join can be used at the same time when other keyword like where, order by, or whatever we have already learned together.